Hey man, what's up, Cliff Racer? Didn't know if anybody would pop in tonight or not. Just kind of impromptu. How you been? Game and Clyde swooshing on in. Yeah, just impromptu live chat and chill. Probably just do this for a half hour. I was actually I had everything set up in here. Doing some quick test for the Uplink con next Saturday. So definitely check that out if you guys aren't already thinking about checking that out. So I just had everything set up, so I was like, why not? I'll just go live for half hour or so, see who pops in. It's been a while. I don't think I've done this in 2021. Yellow and black. Oh man, back in lockdown. Oh, it's brutal. I'm hoping, and I don't want to upset people by talking about real life stuff that you're already inundated with, but I do think so. I work in healthcare. I do think once that Johnson & Johnson vaccine is approved, like they're already producing it, by the time summer rolls around, anybody who wants that vaccine will be able to get it, be it the Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, whatever. So hopefully by summer things will be looking up for everybody. The Neo Geo library, what arcade system are you going to complete next? Oh man, and people ask that. I don't know that there's anything like else that I'm looking at from like a completion standpoint. Like I don't know there's anything I want a full set of. There's probably a few boards here and there I'll probably like look to pick up, but yeah, nothing crazy like Neo Geo. Like that's done. Like that ship has sailed. Like trying to amass a complete collection of something. That's just crazy to me. GC8 Tech, what's up, man? Yeah. So your buddy got vaccinated, got both shots. I know that second shot. So my wife is actually vaccinated. She got her second shot on Monday, and then was on her ass on Tuesday. Like she just she couldn't do anything. So that it really put her down and out for a good 24 hours afterwards. So hopefully your buddy's doing okay after getting his second shot. Yeah, the Hyper Neo 64. I think I've told that story before. There's definitely a Beastbusters 2 machine that was available locally to me. I think it was like $300. I just didn't have anywhere to put it, which really sucked at the time. But that was my only shot, I think, at the Hyper Neo 64. That's the game I probably would want to play the most. I know a lot of people, the Samurai Showdown and everything else, but that's the one I really would want to play. There's a place really close to me, relatively, Philadelphia, not too far away. They've got a Beastbusters 2 cabinet. Looks pretty good, but it's I think they're asking like $1,200 for it, and I mean it's in good shape and all, but I don't know. That's a big machine to move into. Am I still having a blast on MiSTer? Yeah, man, MiSTer is great. Yeah, so I actually got another DE10 Nano, so that because what I had to do earlier, and I think I showed that in the video, I had to take my MiSTer apart and then use the board from that to hook up to the MiSTerCades. And I didn't have a MiSTer upstairs, and then it's just like this back and forth, and putting the board in and out, and I just was kind of getting a little concerned. I don't know, like it's pretty durable, but not if you're doing like the testing and taking it apart and then moving it back upstairs and capturing footage. Like I just didn't want the thing to break, so I ended up getting another board. And so I got MiSTerCade running in Astro City downstairs, and I got my regular MiSTer set up now upstairs. So almost too much MiSTer going on, but yeah, I'm loving it. Super Retro Pie in the house. Good to see you, man. Do I still believe the rumors circulating about Capcom versus SNK3? That's a big ask. I mean, they worked that deal out before when those two companies were at the height of maybe their popularity and what they were doing. And now, SNK seems definitely wanting to market their properties and make money off of them. Capcom with that, they both have come out with those sticks and have sold those to the public. And I don't know. I mean, I could see it happening. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I know there's some shuffling with who owns SNK more recently, right? Like there's I want to say like one of the Saudi princes, right? Like he's invested. I think I saw that. I don't remember his name, but I don't know. With all the ownership and things changing hands, I mean, I'm guessing SNK still has majority control and can make those decisions on their own. But I could see it happening. Something ironic about using the Saturn pad with Capcom CPS2 games. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Oh man, GC8 Tech with the full collection of PGM games. Yeah, I feel like the games I have for PGM I like. I think I mentioned to you SVG, right? But that card is just so out of hand price wise. Like I'm not gonna chase that down. I'll wait for the MiSTerCore for PGM to play that. Yeah, I'm glad you like Tapper. That was a kind of an obscure choice to choose to show Tapper with the Mr. K, because it's an older game. I mean, it even, quite honestly, it predates like when I was really like in the arcade playing, like in the 90s and stuff, like what my arcade days. It predates that a little bit, but the game was still around. I actually played it in Cincinnati on a work trip. That was at a barcade out there. That was probably like 3 or 4 years ago at this point, but I do love that game. I love the cabinet. I like that you have the Budweiser ROM on Mr. K. Like it's so great. It's just a classic game. Jack the Gamer, what's up, man? Oh, that's a good. Ari mentioning the Neo Geo being that rich girl we crushed on back in high school. 30 years later, we still stalk her on Instagram. That's funny. So I'm not going to ask you about any of your habits. I don't. What you're doing on your own time is your business, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there is a magic like allure to Neo Geo in that sense. You're 100% correct. It's one of those things that you definitely. Well, speaking for myself and a lot of the friends that I had at the time, you didn't have it wasn't readily available for you to play. Like people weren't going out and buying that like they were a Nintendo or Super Nintendo or whatever. So it did kind of carry that mystical property to it. Like it was something that was out of reach. And then you get a little bit older and, a little bit of disposable income. Some of this stuff becomes reality. The MVS boxes are out there now. People are manufacturing those and working on those outside of JNX. I know there's been a couple of those actually pop up more recently. And so it's becoming more available. And then you also have the emulation options, official emulation options through SNK themselves, Switch. So yeah, I definitely think that there is a little bit of charm to it because of that, for sure. Yeah, the Neo Geo collection is behind me, as is the PGM, a little bit of the PGM. You can see, I think, yeah, you can see the PGM system too. Encore, hey man, new subscriber. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, Tapper and Wreck-It Ralph. I saw Wreck-It Ralph a long time ago when that first came out. I don't quite remember it. I don't quite remember seeing Tapper in it, but yeah. Oh, the MVSX comes out. Everybody's an ultimate fan. Yeah, it's funny. That's another thing though. Because I want to be really, I want to be careful about that because the Neo community has that stigma attached to it where people say like you're gatekeeping the Neo, and in general people that are fans of Neo are sometimes have that reputation in the community of being like assholes to newcomers. I don't want to be that guy. So, I don't know. I hope that people that got the MVSX got it and are enjoying it. Likewise with the Arcade Stick Pro, the Neo Mini, all that kind of stuff, Switch, and it's opening up doors and people are learning to play the games. But you're right. There's definitely that. It's something that the cool kids are doing or whatever, and it becomes hip to take on that system and play it. There's been other fads like that, I think, that have kind of rippled through that die out. Neo's tough though, because if you're going to go hardcore, there's a big investment to getting original hardware and going that direction on it. So I don't know. The MVSX thing I definitely get. Oh yeah, GC8 Tech sees Dodon Pachi behind me. Yep, I think that's that's a label that I think I got from Arcade Projects and printed out. Yeah, a consoleized MVS is definitely the way to go. I think personally. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but that's how I would approach it if I wanted to go for original hardware. There's definitely the charm and allure of the AES collection, but those carts are so expensive. There's a handful of them that are still within reach, I think, for I don't want to say most people, but I think, if you're going to save up and you're going to splurge, like some of those carts are still obtainable, and then you get into like the Metal Slugs and things like that, and they're not. So if you want original carts for those games, you're probably looking at MVS. Roger Cade, hey man. Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2, definitely good boards. I don't have either of those. I wouldn't mind a Mortal Kombat 2. That would be cool. There's a cabinet, a Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet that's pretty close to me. That's I don't want to say it's cheap. It's not, but it's reasonable. I have Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on the Wolf system. That's the only Mortal Kombat board that I own. Washington D.C. What's up? Hey, Dub. Kind of Cool Productions. Good to see you. Do I feel like I made the big time now that I'm showing up on Retro RGB's main page? Yeah, I mean, obviously, like from a tech standpoint, and that pocket of YouTubing and just social media and stuff like that. Yeah, he and Voltar and that crowd are definitely kind of the go-tos for the real hardcore like mods and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely cool to be appearing and get a little bit of recognition on his page and whatnot. I've never actually met Rob, but we've messaged and stuff a few times here and there, and hopefully at a convention when things open back up, actually meet some of these people in person. Yeah, it's funny. Yellow and Black's mentioning that the Hilo stick got shut down. That's funny. Somebody on Twitter tagged me today, and I think they were angry at me, saying something about I don't remember like it, and I had no context for what was going on or anything. I think, and then that individual, to their credit, DM'd me and apologized and said they had incorrectly tagged me. But I think what they had assumed was that I was doing videos showing modifications of the MVSX and Arcade 1-Up cabinets with ROMs and hacking, and like I somehow built my channel off of that. And there's like this double standard for people doing that versus that, and that I was somehow, and I was like, whoa, like I don't own an Arcade 1-Up. I don't mod those things. I don't, I looked at the MVSX for a quick review, right? But I had nothing to do with that. They were naming names of people who were calling each. I don't know who those people are. So it was just I was incorrectly tagged in that, and the person recognized that. But I was like, who you really want is Retro Ralph. Go call him. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I see Dan's post there. Yeah, I mean, MV1C and MV1F boards. Yeah, I mean, with any arcade stuff, I mean, if GC8 Tech is still in the chat and is still around, like he'll tell you too. Like, anytime you're into arcade gaming and old boards and stuff that were in an arcade and the stuff was running like 24/7, for weeks on end, if not months. The stuff is fragile. Sometimes there's repairs and stuff you can do at home, if it's just simple reflowing solder or capacitor swaps and little things like that. And then you get into, you know, do you know how to use a probe, and can you go through? And I don't know how to do that yet. That's something that's like the next step for me. And I think I'd like to learn how to do a little bit deeper repairs than the stuff that I do. There's definitely talented people out there. You know, we were just talking about like the Voltars of the world that do stuff like that and are good with instruments. So I definitely like to learn, because that is a downside of collecting or playing on original hardware is sometimes there's upkeep and things aren't always in great condition when you get them, and you got to live with that. Del Taco or Taco Bell? It's funny. I'll say Taco Bell only because I don't go to Del Taco all that much, and that's kind of I only ever see it like when I'm on road trips and stuff. It's not really local to us here. There's not a Del Taco near me. Also, I'll mention MC Murr in the chat. Look at that. MC Murr also makes a hell of a homemade salsa. I mean, I don't know if he's going to share the recipe, live stream like a cooking show. His channel might be diverging a little bit. I don't know, but I've heard he makes a hell of a salsa. I actually don't eat a lot of Mexican food. It's one of the I don't know. Like, I do like a good taco every now and then. But yeah, I don't know. Like, going to like the fast food taco places, Moe's, and we actually have a place near us here locally called Nito Burrito that's pretty good. But I don't know. I just don't go that often. Yeah, Game and Clyde. There you go. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing mods and stuff, and you're handy with a soldering iron, and you know what you're doing, you've learned some basics, and you can kind of take that next step, like, definitely have at it. Like, you're probably fine. I still have some stuff I want to learn. Rex is asking about LCD replacements. I've not. I've seen stuff. I've seen people post and people talk about LCD replacements and cabinets. I've not ever gone that route. Thankfully, I've not had to go that route. I've been able to repair the monitors I had that have been a little funky, vertical collapse, some caps on one. Obviously, I've called on arcadecup.com. Chad over there does a really good job. It's sometimes a slow turnaround because he gets a high volume, but he does a hell of a lot of good work for people in repairing and bringing old boards back to life. Cali, lots of Mexican food out there. Yeah, whenever I visit my relatives in California, they always want to go to this Mexican restaurant in LA, and I'm definitely happy to go and do that. I just don't eat a lot of Mexican in general. Lily, nothing in common. This is how Lily and I are spending Valentine's Day. Me live streaming upstairs and her downstairs on the couch in my chat. It's how we do. Yeah, that's a good point, Rex. Like, when you've got to swap a tube in, tube swaps are, it has to be the right tube, obviously, that matches up with your yoke, or you're doing a yoke swap. And then is it the right chassis, and all that can get kind of messy. It's one of the things that I was just telling somebody today, like, if you're going to go out and buy your first cabinet, because there's a lot of people who have been messaging me and asking about the MiSTerCade and saying, like, hey, that makes me really want to get an arcade cabinet because I can play these games FPGA style in a cabinet, and I want to do that. Like, the monitor is really, at least for me, it was like the last thing that I kind of got a grip on, just understanding, and felt comfortable working on my own. So like, for anybody that's just out looking for a cabinet, or from a beginner standpoint, if you want to look at the monitor and the tube, make sure that those are working and in good shape first, and then everything else on that. I'm speaking for myself, but also from a standpoint of what I think is usually easiest, and also safety. working on the cab, replacing controls, and even some of the body work and stuff. Like it's work, right? But it's not anything that's dangerous, or you have to have a lot of, electrical engineering knowledge, right, to work on that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've heard that too. I see Pigliver just mentioned he replaced CRT with an LCD, hated it and went back. I've heard that story several times. I've heard people talk about that. They've gone LCD and then it just doesn't do it for them. Rotatable monitor, yeah. I mean, that's like those Egret 2s. Like I'm so jealous every time I see those. I was just so, like when I was testing the Mr. Cade, and I just didn't have it in me. Like I'm not pull out the Astro City, and that's not even really a tough cab to rotate the monitor on, but it's still a pain in the ass every time you got to do that. And having something that you could easily just tilt and rotate, it's awesome. That is the legendary Lily. Yeah, she's weighing in and kind of heckling the chat and me from downstairs. Brian, I see waited. I need to update my Mister. I saw that there was an update that came out. I did not update my Mister today. I need to. Yeah, and GC8 Tech is correct. Chassis can be they can be very expensive to repair depending on what's needing done on them, parts, just labor in general. Like you're probably looking at minimum of $100 just for somebody to look at it, and then shipping both ways, all that kind of, it can get expensive. Super RetroPie, if you snag a Mister, you're definitely going to have to change your name. You can't be Super RetroPie rocking a Mister. LCD rotatable animation monitor. Don't care radio spirit. I'm not sure what that means, but I might have to Google that actually, or I guess look it up on YouTube. I'm guessing that's an easily rotatable monitor. Super Mr. Cade. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to change your name for sure. 100%. Super Mr. Pie. Yeah, it's funny. You're talking about the RetroPie and Mr. Cade. That was something that has surfaced more recently, kind of bridging the two worlds of arcade, true arcade purists, and then you have the arcade one-up crowd. And is there a market for the arcade one-up crowd to put a Mister into those arcade one-up machines? And it's kind of a neat idea. I don't think it would be hard. People were asking about the Mr. Cade, and I was like, well, you don't really need the Mr. Cade to hook that up to an arcade one-up. Probably just need the Mister. I haven't really seen the inside of an arcade one-up, but I can't imagine it's too complex to hook up a Mister. You already got HDMI out, right? And USB ports all over that thing, and it's just I think it could probably be done pretty easily if you could offer a solution to that group, and maybe start converting some people or just bridging, not converting, but merging those two worlds. And instead of using a Raspberry Pi to mod your arcade one up, you're actually putting a Mister in, something low lag and near perfect hardware replication. That's really cool. It's a cool idea. It introduced that group of individuals, not to say that they're not interested in Mister. I'm sure a lot of those people still are, but giving them the ability to kind of put that inside a cabinet. It's a good idea if you can get it to work out. You're trying to trick me into watching my new music, your new music video, Caveman Animation. I mean, depends how the night goes here. When I sign off here, I might be bored enough to just start looking things up. So who knows? Pixel response time, latency. Yeah. I actually have. I think I talked about this before. I actually have I bought it a couple years ago. It's a TCL television, which I know is not like a high end TV, but the lag is pretty good on those. If you go out to ratings.com, it's not bad. Yeah, it's funny, Mostick, you're asking about the hacks for the Arcade Stick Pro. Super Dimensional, who I don't think is in the chat, but yeah, he's got a decent page out on Instagram and follows me, and he'll message me from time to time. He was talking about just the recent hack with, I guess there's more stuff for it. Like there's more like the Capcom games and some console games and stuff. He was kind of put off by it. I don't want to speak for him, but I know he was like, I want to hide that stuff. I just want the Neo Geo stuff on my Neo Geo Arcade Stick Pro. I don't want all the other bloat. So I know not everybody has like other options for some of that stuff. So it's definitely valuable to have it, but I think he figured out a way to hide some of that so it wasn't showing up on his screen. But no, the short answer to your question is I have not played with the hack. Maybe it's something I could revisit. I honestly have such a backlog of ideas and things that I want to do. I'm in the middle of something right now. So it's been hard to, every time somebody comes up with another idea or something like that, I can never promise I'm going to get around to it. Oh, there's Super Dimensional in the chat. Like we just called his name and he shows up. There he is. He'll tell you how much he hates that new Arcade Stick Pro hack with all the bloat on it. All right, Matt, good seeing you. Thanks for stopping by, man. Yeah, I mean, LCDs in general, I think are a panel lottery, especially, I've been watching because I've been wanting to get a replacement for my TV in our main living room. And, I've been looking at larger LCDs for that. And the TV we have down there, I think is from like 2011, 2012. It's like 9 or 10 years old. So I'm definitely due for an upgrade. It's not 4K or anything like that. But yeah, I'm reading reviews and even just, out on the AV forums. And people are just saying like, it's that whatever model it is, it doesn't even matter. Is it Samsung? Is it TCL? Is it a Sony? And they're, everyone kind of says like, yeah, this is really good if you don't get, stuck with a bad one, dirty screen effect or some of those other things that go wrong, or backlight bleeding and. But then, they exchange it. Apparently, I don't have a Costco membership, but apparently Costco is really good about just taking those things back and letting you cycle until you get a good one. Yeah, Super Dimensional talking about the Hilo group leaving. That's we were talking about. Blame Retro Ralph. Go to his channel and say that it's all his fault. I'm just kidding. I do like Ralph, but we were talking about that. Because actually, when I got that message on Twitter or got tagged today, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, and I went to him because I figured, Arcade One Up, like he's gonna know, like right, like that's kind of his bread and butter. I was like, what'd you do? And he he kind of explained that situation a little bit to me. Yeah, a real Saturn. That comes up every now and then too. That's one system that I think I've never owned. I've really never, I can't recall playing on a Sega Saturn. I don't think I've ever, outside of the kiosk maybe at Babbage's or Electronics Boutique, I don't think I've ever played a Saturn. Just never knew anybody that had one. Nobody had it at college. So yeah. Yeah, ratings is definitely the digital buy. I mean, I know people, they get some flack and people say like, oh, they were paid for that review or whatever. And you see that kind of stuff. But for the most part, like where else are you going? Like AV forums are pretty good. Just more from a user perspective. And there's obviously contributors and they do articles and reviews there too. But between those two, I kind of gauge my opinion on something. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for stopping by, man. I'm super. I'm telling you, it was Ralph. It was Ralph. He had this whole thing orchestrated. He wanted the high-low hack for himself and doesn't want anybody else to have any fun hacking these machines. It's all Ralph's fault. Oh, the Virtua Racing, a Virtua Racing sequel. That's interesting. Yeah, One of those things I got a long-winded answer for this. I'll try to keep it brief. I think Virtua Racing was kind of one of those things that was a product of a moment, much like Virtua Fighter, the first one, the polygons and how they're rendered and that flat look, but the way they're kind of pieced together, right? Before there's like texture maps being put over them. I mean, you could definitely do like an IndyCar racing game and call it Virtua Racing 2, but would it maintain the same charm? I don't know. Maybe if it's done right. Virtua Racing, the remake or that's on Switch, I thought that was pretty good. It had, I mean, obviously it looks sharper and, but it for the most part it kind of kept the same feel. So if you did something like that and you did it well, I could see a Virtua Racing 2 done in that manner. But if you're just going to make an indie racing game and it's going to be like on PS5 and 4K and all that, it loses some of the charm. I mean, I know not everybody would agree with that opinion, but that's where I'm at on that one. I actually, when I was playing the STV, it had been a long time since I had played Virtua Fighter Remix. And I know somebody, I was watching them restore a Virtua Fighter cabinet on a forum, and they didn't want to go through the hassle of those Model 1 boards and wiring that all up. It's a pain in the ass, and finding the boards and if making sure it works and all that kind of stuff. They're like, I could just it could just jam a wire this thing and put an STV in it, right? A Sega STV system, and play Virtua Fighter Remix, and it would be the same thing. And I had to be honest, I went back and I was thinking about that, and I booted Virtua Fighter Remix on my Astro City to play. It doesn't have the same charm. The texture mapped characters, I don't know. There's just something about it. It's that moment that I'm talking about, that moment in time of where technology was, and this was as good as we could do with the polygons the way they were, the bare polygons before texture mapping. There's just something about it that isn't the same once you've applied it. It just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me. Of course it arguably looks better. You get down the line into Virtua Fighter 2, it looks great, right? But that was Virtua Fighter 2 when it came out, and Virtua Fighter 2 is great. It's a great game. It looks good. I don't know, reskinning something, and I don't know. I might be in the minority on that. I don't know, but we'll see. Have I played Formula Retro Racing? I have not. I've seen some reviews and some YouTubers' videos on that, so I know what it is, but I've not played it. Hey, Rick. Oh, you got your JAMA Pandora box deluxe today. Is that like the new one where you can add games to it? Because I think I did fool around with a Pandora's box like years ago, but you were pretty much locked to whatever they had on it. I think the newer ones allow you to put your own games on it. Oh yeah, getting that optical disc emulator for the Saturn. That's pretty sweet. Hey, Paul. Cheers. Yeah, optical disc emulators it's such a great technology. Just being able to have those ODEs and pop them in, and again, not like you're saying, not worrying about discs, not swapping discs, loading everything up on an SD card, having it at your disposal, and it still runs off of original hardware. I do love that concept. It's great. There you go. Less tearing, and you can add games. Cool. I thought it's usually about this time somebody asks about the Neo Geo 2 or 3 or whatever they're calling it. Like, when's that coming out? I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that too recently. Not anything more than what's already out there anyway. So I don't know. There's a lot of talk about it. I see it pop up on Facebook groups and on the forum from time to time. I think it's funny because I think there's there's part of the crowd's like, that's just going to be an emulator box. Get ready to be disappointed. And then you got the other crowd who's like, oh no, it's going to take cartridges and it's going to be amazing. And they're like really building it up to themselves, I think, to be, if we could just meet in the middle somewhere on those expectations, I think we might be in a better place, but who knows what they're going to do with that. Can you notice any differences playing Neo Geo games on real hardware versus MAME emulation? That's a tough question. I do think, I guess Final Burn Neo is pretty good overall. Actually, I posted a thing on Twitter where I was comparing the MiSTer to real MVS hardware this week. I actually have a second, or I guess a third file where I was running it off of an emulator. I was running, I think it was Sonic Wings 3, and I did Mutation Nation, but I didn't post that. Off of all three different variables. So you got the MVSX, or not the X, the MVS hardware. You've got Final Burn Neo running off of a RetroPie, and then the MiSTer. And by and large, it's pretty close. The thing I think that happens with the RetroPie, and it's not all emulator devices, but definitely I've noticed it more with the RetroPie, is it just, the controls seem to lag a little. So when you put the video comparison up, and you're looking at it, you're watching it render, or you're hearing the sounds and watching how the audio lines up, and do the three all kind of match, it can look pretty good. But then when you're actually playing it, it definitely feels a little bit more sluggish than either the MiSTer or obviously original hardware. But there's things you can do to mitigate that. It doesn't have to be played on a Raspberry Pi. There's people, that are really savvy with, people talk about groovy MAME and running those setups on their PCs, going in and using run ahead and eliminating some of the lag that way. So there's definitely ways to combat it. I get that question a lot, and I feel bad sometimes. I just don't play a lot of Neo on emulators, just because I'm either using, at this point I'm using the MiSTer a lot for comparison's sake, and because it's new to me and I'm trying to get a grip on it. But I'll go back to original hardware for it. It's a thing that I love, and that's where I play most of my Neo Geo, if not on an arcade cabinet. So it's not me being dismissive. It's just I just don't do it enough to feel like I can comment on it, and I know I should, because I get that question a lot. I definitely would say I have played Neo Turf Masters. I have Metal Slug 3 that I played on Switch. I bought just for on the go, right, for work travel and whatnot, and those felt pretty good. I thought from an emulation standpoint on a device, the Switch emulation of Neo Geo in those games, it's good. So definitely I wouldn't let that deter you. Yeah. So yeah, Super Dimensional is mentioning that. He's like, when he plays Street Fighter 2 on a MiSTer, he's unstoppable. And then he plays on a Pi, he's okay, but not invincible. Yeah, there is a timing thing, and for games like that, it definitely makes a difference. And I think you get into, I always say this, I'm not I would never win a tournament or be in a tournament. Like, I'm not a hardcore like fighting game fan or player by any stretch, but I know that that's for sure the crowd that's good at picking those kinds of things up. Shooters also, like timing and whatnot, and you start to notice them on that. Honestly, I would even argue, as silly as this sounds, something like Neo Turf Masters or even League Bowling, where you're kind of doing the tap. And you have to tap the button at the right moment when you're watching, the graph go up and down or whatever. That matters too. You don't have to be like a hardcore fighting game fan to kind of pick some of that stuff up. If you've played League Bowling or Neo Turf Masters on an arcade setup, and you switch over to a system, whatever it is, an emulation-based system that introduces a little bit of lag, be it through the controller or even maybe the display that you're looking at it on, you'll be a little off. You can adjust for sure. I mean, depending on how bad it is, you can adjust, but there will be an adjustment period usually. Yeah, how close is the MiSTer to original Neo Geo hardware? Yeah, so I've been trying to. I know people would ask that, and so that's why I've been playing with it and running those types of comparisons and looking at them on my computer and whatnot, and trying to line things up and see if it's if it's representative of the original thing. And I bounce back and forth between original hardware, and I'll go over to the MiSTer and play the same game and whatnot. It's a pretty good experience. I mean, really, it's pretty seamless. There's no like the lag we're talking about. There's not really any of that. I can use the snack ports, so I can use original original Neo Geo AES controllers, the CD controller I've used, and the arcade stick. And with that snack connection, there's virtually no lag. It's a beautiful thing, and it plays a lot like original hardware. I would be, I did have the MiSTerCade in my Big Red at one point, briefly one evening. I would be hard pressed to know the difference. I really would be hard pressed to know the difference if, the whole thing's sealed up and I can't see inside of it. I probably would. I wouldn't know. In a blind test, I probably would not know. Hey, John Phillips. Good to see you, man. What Neo Geo related product are you most interested in after getting a complete MVS collection? Oddly, do you know, I've talked about this before too. I've never had a CDZ. I really like the Japanese CD console, that CDZ. I think it's cool. It looks cool. There's no way to justify needing that. I just don't. There are some cool soundtracks for some of the Neo Geo games that have been ported over to the Neo CD. They have arranged audio tracks that are good to listen to. Polestar obviously is one of my favorites. So I would definitely, I'd be interested in that, but I don't need it. It's not cheap. I don't need to spend the money on it. If I really want to, I can just kind of listen to those discs as audio discs. I know the Neo SD also plays CD games now on cartridge hardware, so that's cool. I don't have a Neo SD either, so I don't really have a good option or a good way of playing Neo CD games. So that would probably be the thing I'd be interested in the most, but I don't see myself grabbing that anytime soon. Yeah, the Coke versus Pepsi taste test. That is what I'm thinking of when I think of the whole comparing MiSTer to real hardware. Social gamer, a new Neo Geo CD owner in the house. Which Neo Geo controller do I prefer? That comes up a lot too. You're right, but I like talking about that. So it's weird. I switch back and forth between the two. I really do like the CD gamepad, and that's more of like my console gaming type thing, but I do like there's certain games like Nom 75 where I definitely want the stick for. I played it in the arcade that way. Playing Nom with a CD controller feels really strange to me. I don't know, and I'm not good playing the game with it. So there's certain games like that I really feel like I need the stick for. But then there's other things like Polestar. I think I did a really shitty video of the first 3 stages of that, of me playing it on original hardware, and I got through the first 3 stages without dying. But I definitely prefer the CD controller for Polestar, especially the later levels, because that's how I kind of practiced and got good at that game and memorized a lot of it, was just playing it on a television. And and there's just something about being able to, I can move my thumb much quick. I don't know if that's true or not, like the physics behind it, but I feel like I can move my thumb a lot quicker to move that stick and react faster than I can, moving a controller or an arcade stick back and forth. I'm sure somebody could challenge that and tell me I'm wrong, but personal preference, I like the CD controller for shooters. Ball top or bat top for joysticks. Definitely bat top for me on like an MVS, like an actual arcade, and on any American cabinet. I want that. Where that comes into it's interesting because I was playing Street Fighter on the Astro City, which is ball top, and I would never put a bat top on a Japanese machine. I don't know. I don't love it. So if I'm going to play Street Fighter or a fighting game, I want the bat top, and I know that's not the cool answer. I know that's not what people want to hear. It's like, oh no, that's not the authentic way. And in the Japanese arcade, I know, I get it, but that's what I'm most comfortable with. It's how I played it growing up, and playing with a ball top is a little strange. Now, other games, things I'm not as familiar with or married to, I'm fine with the ball top. So again, it kind of varies by the game or what hardware I'm playing on. Another we're talking about controllers. Another thing, the Neo Geo Arcade Stick Pro actually is a pretty good controller for MiSTer. So even if you're not playing the games off of it, you run your games off the MiSTer and then use the Arcade Stick Pro. It's not a bad arcade stick. So I've been using that a little bit with MiSTer as well. Yeah, kind of cool productions. The load times on the Neo CD, for games that are not like early games, like if you get in like Last Blade 2, like if you've ever tried to play that on a CD, it's rough. And that's probably the worst of the games. It's been a while, but I remember just like thinking you were getting ready to play, and then it loads again, and then you see like both characters, and then it loads something else. Then you play around, and then it has to load again to get into the second round. It's crazy. Like I was blown away, but it's just very distracting and not fun. Other games, they load at the beginning, and then you're fine, and you can just kind of jump in and play. But definitely some of those later fighting games on the CD, a Neo CD, is definitely rough. Would I recommend the Sega Astro City stick as a go-to stick? I love it. I think it's great. I've used that a lot with the MiSTer as well. I don't know. For a while, people were messaging me and saying like it was out of stock and wasn't available. I don't know if they sold out, restocked. I don't know what the status is on inventory for that. But the Astro City stick from Sega is pretty legit. It's nice and heavy. I want to say it probably weighs like 5 pounds. I talked about doing a video for it. It's another thing I'm just way behind on. I haven't gotten to, and all this Mr. Cade stuff coming at me, and I'm trying to be good to those guys and do my part where I can to show it off, get people excited for it, and show the pros of having that. But so I've fallen behind a little on that. I did want to talk about that because it was a genuine surprise to me that actually may be the hidden gem of that Astro City Mini lineup between the controller, the actual unit, and then the arcade stick. The arcade stick is great. If you can find one and you need a stick, that you won't be disappointed in it. Yeah, the CD controllers for Neo have gone up. I've noticed that too. They used to be like around like $40 or so, like back when I bought mine, and now they're like double that. Like I've seen them, like sometimes if you're lucky you can find them for like $50 or $60, but yeah, Social Gamer's saying 80. I don't doubt that. And then you start getting into, you buy them a little bit cheaper, they're a little bit more rough, the micro switches, stick doesn't click, it needs cleaned. And it's on its way out, so you got to be careful with that too. Yes, yeah, prices have really skyrocketed. Yeah, Rick. See, Rick says he's thinking about converting his arcade one up to a MiSTer cabinet with all the Neo Geo games. So that's why the guys are kind of talking a little bit about maybe that could be a product in the future. That would be, if somebody was crafty enough to come up with a solution. I know you could probably do that now, but I think what we were saying is if you could come up with something that was almost like a commercial product, out of the box instructions, and I guess I would need to know, and I don't know if we know this for sure. Maybe you guys do. Like the Street Fighter arcade 1-up seems to me that would be like the prime cabinet, a 6-button layout, 2 sticks, right, for a MiSTer setup. I don't know that I'm assuming they are, like all of the insides of the arcade 1-ups are wired similarly, like maybe not like the Centipede or anything with like the spinners, but hopefully you wouldn't be buying that thinking you're going to throw a MiSTer in it anyway. Centipede's available on MiSTer, but I mean that's a big investment to make. I think they're probably all wired the same. Like even like thinking about the 4-player like NBA Jam and Turtles. I'm guessing it's all relatively the same, but we have to sort that out. Yeah, the new Neo Geo CD like pads that SNK put out for the Mini, yeah, they don't click, which it takes something away for me personally. It takes something away from this. I don't like that. It changes how it just changes how it feels, and it made playing the games feel awkward. But if you're not familiar with that, maybe it doesn't matter as much. Yeah, sticky clicks is hard to make. That's right. Yeah, I mean, Sega figured it out. So, yeah, Ian, that was my biggest concern too. Like the lack of the click, and then that pushing the stick around on the new pad. It just felt like that thing was in an ocean, and you're just like moving it around. It just didn't. It did not feel right, and maybe I should have. It's hard when that it's supposed to be the Neo Geo CD pad, so you're framing that in your mind, and then you start playing with it, and it doesn't feel. I mean, maybe that's unfair to compare it to the original in some ways, but it's what it is. Like that's what you guys did. You tried to remake it, and that's what you're telling me it is. So that's my expectation. But a lot of people probably don't have that expectation or have that familiarity with the original, so they don't care. Then for me it feels off, and for some of you guys I'm sure it feels off too. Yeah, the Arcade Stick Pro is great. I mean, from an emulation standpoint, I thought it was pretty good. It was definitely it's definitely the better product between the Mini and the Arcade Stick Pro. The Arcade Stick Pro is a better product, but it's also more expensive. Sometimes you pay for what you get. I like that it can be used in other things. I mean, I when I got the Arcade Stick Pro, I didn't know that I was going to eventually be using it on the MiSTer, which is great because now I pull that out. I use that for Neo games on the MiSTer. I was talking about the Astro City Mini arcade stick. Like that's another go-to, but definitely for Neo Geo games, Arcade Stick Pro, I'll pull out the AES stick, and then I was talking about the CD controller too, which I want for shooters and some of the other games that I play. What I've been a little surprised by, and maybe there's just not a big enough market, but like these companies like Retrobit or 8BitDo, they haven't tried to make a Neo controller. I've been a little surprised by that. I thought for a little while there, like it seemed like Neo Geo might be heating up. People were getting interested in it. When it came out for Switch, I thought, okay, here we go. Like they start releasing all these Neo Geo games on Switch, there'll be a little bit of a market. Maybe they'll put out like a reproduction Neo Geo CD controller, and you'll get the micro switches. And I thought that one of those companies would capitalize on that, but to date, nobody seems interested in making that. Yeah, kind of cool saying you know, that controller had the looks but not the feel. You're spot on. I do really like that CD controller because of how big it is. It's got nice large buttons on it. I mean, it's really it's made for adult hands, which, you know, it's not for it's not really for kids. I mean, it's a big controller. It's got big buttons, you know, and the micro switches on it. Like, it's something that was really geared towards the enthusiast, or AKA the adult buyer back in the day. It just, yeah, it's a premium controller. I love it. I really do. Yeah, you're right. So the TurboGrafx controller came out, from those guys. I wonder analog if analog comes out with an FPGA like retail Neo Geo, if at that point 8BitDo will say, okay, we'll make the controller to go along with that. That seems likely, or at least more likely than the current situation we're in, where they would just be making it just because. But there's been such an influx of, or I should say requests even, for people to get consoleized MVS units, and you're seeing more and more people, you know, kind of dip their toes into that, and making consoleized MVS units. So there does seem to be some demand there. I thought, you know, having the flash carts come out, the DarkSoft as well as the Neo SD, I thought that might, and that probably has helped push the consoleized MVS units I just mentioned. So I don't know. The controller just seems like it. I don't. If you're already making controllers, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a manufacturing guru, but if you're already making controllers, and like, how much more difficult is it to modify for the next system? You know, you need a new mold, right? And the micro switch thing. I do think people would probably turn, well, the Neo hardcore would probably turn their nose up if it didn't have the micro switches. So that might be the hold up, but who knows? I don't know. I'm still holding out hope that we get one of those companies producing because like that, what was the Genesis controller that came out? Was that the M30? When the Mega SG came out, they made the M30, and people love that thing. People love that M30 controller. I've never played on one, but it looks good, and everybody raves about it. So they're definitely capable of making good products. So, yeah, I mean, if you could get those guys to produce a reproduction controller, or even a new spin on the Neo Geo controller, I think you'd have people interested. You're at Del Taco. That's amazing. Well, you enjoy that. Yeah, yeah. A consoleized MVS configuration with an AES adapter. I've wondered about that. Like, if Analog ever did decide they were going to make a Neo Geo, would you get both slots? Would you get an AES slot and an MVS slot on the same machine, or would they sell, you know, two versions of the hardware? That seems like that would be divisive. I would almost think you'd have to have options to play both, or like you're saying, an adapter of some sort to play both. You don't get why Atari made the 2600 with one button. It is funny, like, thinking about the evolution of things. Well, I mean, take it a step further. Nintendo's like, one button, I'm going to put two on this NES. And then, you know, kind of two, I'm going to double that and go to four when I make the Super Nintendo. And just kind of that whole evolution. And then Street Fighter comes out, and, you know, and some other games. There's a few before that, I think. And it's like, we're going to do six. And it makes sense. But at the time, it's like one button. Yeah. I never knew I was really missing out on anything with one button. Like, it just blew my mind. You could have two. Like, what? That's crazy. What kind of technology is this? Yeah, and now, like, I don't even know how many buttons are on controllers now. I don't have the most modern system I have in the house is a Wii U. So yeah, I don't even know how many buttons a PS5 has. I'm guessing what, 4 on the shoulder and 4 on the face. Start, select, right? Maybe. So yeah, I mean, I definitely do want to pull out the Arcade Stick Pro or not the Arcade Stick Pro, the Sega Astro City arcade stick and tear that apart and take a look at it. People are asking about modding that too. I mean, you definitely probably can. I saw one video, somebody already opened it up, and cause I kind of cheated and I'm like watching their video of the inside, so I know what I'm in for. But you can definitely mod it, but it has pretty good parts in it already. I think that's part of what makes it a good stick, is that it already has Sanwa parts in it, and it's got like solid weight to it. I think it weighs like 5 pounds. So it's no slouch. I mean, it's on your lap. It's not really going anywhere. It's a good stick. So I don't know that I mean, if you want to customize it to your own, I mean, I'm a Sumitsu button and stick person, so I might be somebody that's interested in that later down the road. But as of right now, it's pretty great. Any interest in modern stuff? Every now and then I see a game or something that I wish I could play or it looks fun, and it's like, oh, if I ever can like go to my friend's house again, I'll ask them if I can see that game or whatever. Pandemic's kind of made that hard. Like personally, I'm not just like going around to different people's houses and stuff, so I don't see as much modern stuff anymore, but. Yeah, I mean, I get the itch every now and then. I think something would be cool, and then I think about all the crap that I'm already dealing with here with working on arcade machines and playing games, and I've got a Terminator gun apart in my office right now that needs some work, and it's like, do I really need to spend $500 on a PlayStation 5 and play 2 games on it and never have time for it because I'm already doing so many other things? Like. And YouTube itself, like I'm here talking to you guys because I want to, mind you. But yeah, this is what I wanted to do tonight. And so, yeah, I don't know. Introducing another variable into the mix, I probably realistically just wouldn't have time for it. And I'm not willing to spend like $500 plus on something that I know that I'm probably just not going to play. So it's not that I'm not interested. It's just I'm just being realistic about it. Yeah, making Neo MVS conversions. Yeah. I mean, I ventured into that territory once myself. I made myself an ironclad cart. So yeah, it's definitely a cool thing if you can get into that. I know that there's some, it becomes tough because, if you're ruining a good cartridge and, people can frown on that. And I'm not going to take a stance here on that Friday night in a chat, but there's pros and cons to that. But for sure, if it's your game and you're not planning on selling it and you want to play it on real hardware and you've got the means to do it without screwing it up and you're actually making a good reproduction of something, yeah, go ahead. The Alien arcade light guns. Yeah, I saw Retro Ralph is doing some stuff with those Alien arcade light guns when he's not getting the Hilo hack shut down. Yeah, I somebody actually because I was talking about the Terminator guns and somebody was asking me, I guess I feel bad because I do like Ralph. So I'm teasing when I say those things. I haven't seen, I know he's done the videos on them, but somebody was saying like the internals to those guns the wiring looks similar to some of the Midway stuff. I don't know how true that is. I mean, the pinout would, I'm guessing if they're not actual light guns and they're kind of like your mounted assembly gun and they're working off of like an X and Y pot, they probably could be reused for other games. It might be a hell of a lot of work, but I'd definitely like to check them out. Buy another arcade cabinet. Ugh, there's too much going on down there right now. I've got the one Virtua Cop. I have to finish that, and I actually need to like finish my basement off. I can't. I really can't buy another machine right now. Yeah. Ralph is fixing a Killer Instinct. I did see that's a good machine he got. He got that relatively cheap too, I think, and he had to do some repairs on it, but it looks pretty good overall. Hey, Brazil in the house. Good to see you, man. Yeah, how many super sidekicks does the world actually need? It's crazy. Like I get mad at that. Like all these soccer or AKA football games that are on the Neo Geo, and I was like, why couldn't we get one hockey game? Just one ice hockey game. Getting lit. Hey man, welcome to the chat. Beast Busters, definitely. Would definitely be down for some Beast Busters. Happy Friday, YouTube Punk in the house. Cliff Racer, I thought you were at Del Taco. Are you eating in the parking lot right now? Yeah, I mean, I think I was up farther in the chat. Somebody asked about my Switch. I did sell my Switch about a year ago. Yeah, I wasn't playing it. Again, it goes back to that whole thing of I'm playing a ton of retro games. I'm making YouTube videos. I'm repairing arcade machines in the basement. I just genuinely don't have time for it. And without going off on a tangent again today, because of the Super Mario 3D World thing, a lot of the first party games, which is why that's why I own a Nintendo system. It's not because, we were just talking about modern day games. I don't venture that far typically unless it's like some AAA like blockbuster title. But I buy the Nintendo machines to play the Nintendo games on because they're usually generally pretty good. And I just didn't feel like I was getting that with the Switch. I felt like a lot of the stuff that was coming over had been ports, and that was signaled pretty early on. The Breath of the Wild thing, fine. Like, I get it. Like, it comes out on Wii U, and you're going to sell your new system, and here it is on that. And that's fine. But then, like, you go a little bit further, and you start seeing other things come over, and it's like the deluxe, like Mario Kart 8 again. And it was like, I already have that, and I have the DLC for it, and I played the hell out of that on Wii U. So I never bought Mario Kart 8. And then, you get the Pikmin thing announced. You've got like, like Splatoon even came out, and that was Splatoon 2 to their credit, but it didn't feel like a huge upgrade to the original Splatoon. And I know there's probably a shit ton of DLC and stuff that renders that statement inaccurate at this point. And I haven't played it in a year. So, but yeah, there's just a lot of ports coming over and games I had already played. So I lost interest in the Switch pretty quickly because that was my main reason for having a Switch, was to play new first party, like Tropical Freeze. Like, I already played that. I loved it. I thought it was great on Wii U, but I'm done with it. So I lost interest in the Switch pretty quickly. Uh, 50 games and 40 are still sealed. That's a backlog. Yeah, I'm not shitting on the Switch, just so everybody's aware. Like, I think it's great, and it's a good retro console for people that don't have like retro consoles or didn't grow up in the era. I think it's great. I mean, we just talked about Neo Geo being pretty prominent on the Nintendo Switch and having a pretty good offering library, and that's a great way for people to play games. For me, when I was traveling, like, I could take it on the go. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying, from a first party standpoint, there just wasn't stuff that Animal Crossing, like, I've never played an Animal Crossing game in my life. Maybe I would love it if I got into it. I don't know. It doesn't seem like something that appeals to me. And, so that's not really my cup of tea either. So a lot of I'm just out of sync with what Nintendo is doing with that like, I'm just not on the same page, but that's fine. Obviously millions of other people are. the MVS near you always had soccer in it. Which soccer game? Like, there's like 6 or 7 of them. It's crazy. Yeah, yeah, Neil. If I was still traveling and stuff too, like the Switch would be pretty good to have. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, eating in the parking, Cliff Racer. You're eating Del Taco in a parking lot, signed in to a ScarletSprites live stream on your Friday night. I want you to do something exciting when you get home. Yeah, Hamster was pretty prolific. They were like cranking out a lot of those Neo titles, and I think like every like couple weeks there was an announcement of what was coming out. They would have like the splash page with the art of the box art or whatever, and then there'd be like a little synopsis telling you what it was. I thought it was funny, like people would like review those then too, like on some of the Nintendo websites they were reviewing those games, which is fine, like from a standpoint of you know, does it emulate well, or does it control well, or what options do you have? You can switch between the MVS and AES version, like all that is kind of interesting. But it was that wasn't always what those reviews were. They were actually reviewing the game, and it's like, well, this came out like decades ago. Like there are already reviews on this. We don't really need this review. But who am I to say that? Wait, Del Tacos and fries. So you can get French fries with tacos at Del Taco. Is that right? Get fries like instead of rice? That's interesting. Oh, thanks. I'm glad, Mailson, I'm glad you like the Mr. Cade preview. There's definitely more stuff to come with that. I think Rob mentioned on his website, like there's stuff that I mean, quite honestly, that video took a while to put together. So I didn't dive into all the details of it. And for sure, when we get to a final product for Mr. Cade, we'll cover it. I'm sure Rob will go through it pretty thoroughly. There'll be a few other people that cover it as well. And I'll, hopefully I'll have a final look here at the final product once it comes out. But I didn't want to get into some of those dip switches and stuff. Like I know, could go away. And one of the things I do regret from that video that I didn't show that became a couple people asked about, you can output video from it while it's hooked up to an arcade. So you can run the HDMI out on it and run that into a separate display for capture purposes. So if you wanted to play on a real arcade with the Mr. Cade and capture or stream, you could do that. And I didn't show that. There is a little bit of a workaround that's needed for that, and that's since been solved and sorted and everything. So part of it was my own troubleshooting issue when I was first setting that up and working on it. That it was a configuration that I had set up incorrectly. But then eventually I got it working, and I was already in flight with the video, and Porkchop reached out and was kind of explaining some things to me with the settings, and it all works perfectly fine. So I might show that in a follow-up video because I know people are interested in it. Yeah, Nintendo Life, they would go over every time like one of those games came out and was ported, they would just review it as though it were a brand new game. Like when those indie games come out on Switch, like I get it. Like nobody knows what those things are, and it's not like something that's 25 years old. Like it's very interesting. What do I think about the MiSTerFPGA? We talked about that a little bit. I mean, the Mister is great. Like I've been, I don't know, what's it been, 2 months maybe that I've had some time with it off and on, and just in time to kind of like prep me for use with the Mr. Cade. I love what I've seen on it so far. Convenience factor alone is a huge win. Low lag for the controls is obviously like another go-to reason for having it. It's nice also having like all your CD games on an SD card, minimize load times, and just have, I think it's great. It's my go-to for TurboGrafx 16 for sure. I don't know if I talked about this before. I had a Turbo Duo RX. I sold it. I got rid of it. It just, I didn't play it that much. It had a component. It was modded for component video output. Had a region switch on it. But I was feeding it into the RetroTink 2X Pro, and it was just kind of like some extra connections and stuff and whatnot. And I wasn't married to it. I rarely sell hardware. I just wasn't attached to it. And now that the MiSTer was here and everything was loaded up and it was HDMI out, games felt pretty good. I unloaded the Duo RX. Hey, Smoke Monster. Speaking of people in the MiSTerCade and pioneers of the MiSTer format, Smoke Monster. Yeah, I'm glad you like that video, man. I was just talking about there's a lot of other features on the MiSTerCade that I haven't covered or I didn't talk about, and I think people like yourself, Rob, will definitely get there. Once we get a final product pulled together, we'll definitely be showing some of that stuff. Yeah, Smoke is spotting Dodonpachi there in the background. GC8 Tech was in here too a little while ago. I don't know if he's still here. We were talking a little bit of PGM. Speaking of MiSTer and then PGM, that's another core that I'm hoping pops up on MiSTer sometime here in the future. That would be a great way to play some of those PGM games. And it's funny how many people ask about it, and they'll say that they've seen something that looks like a Neo Geo, but the carts are red. Do you know what that is? And it pops up every now and then, and it's like opening up this entire world to somebody that, they just didn't know about that hardware. And the games on it are pretty good, surprisingly. It's not a vast library, but the games that they did make are pretty good. Demon Front, really, people say it's better than Metal Slug, right? Like it's so much more than that from a play standpoint. It's a fun game to play. The artwork's good. Definitely check that out if you've never played Demon Front. But some of the other titles on that system are great as well. A lot of good beat 'em ups and good designs and character art. I would definitely check it out. I think if it comes to MiSTer, you're going to see that open up, and people are going to discover or rediscover that format and probably fall in love with it. Somebody was just asking me about like getting into multi-carts and hardware, and they were wanting to. They had gotten a cabinet and wanted to know what original hardware they could get relatively cheap that they could play on original hardware in their cabinet, because they wanted to just start building a small collection, and they asked about what's that red thing, and I showed them a video, and I showed them a couple links online. And they're like, I'm definitely getting that, because the PGM hardware is relatively cheap still. At least, the most of the carts and the console itself, or the hardware is cheap. So you can have a lot of fun for not a lot of money. Yeah, that would be great if we could get him working on the PGM core. Man, that would be great. That's your go-to guy too. Yeah, I mean, right? Like the sprites, and like I know it's a later. They're kind of taking advantage, right? Because it's later, like 2000s ish, early 2000s, and so 2D games were kind of on the way out at that point, so they're kind of taking advantage. But they did it right. Like there's no denying it. Like looking back, and shit, I don't care that it came out late and they capitalized on that. Like they did it right. Like the sprites, the artwork, everything is great about. I mean, I've been playing the Gladiator more recently, and that game At first I didn't quite, there, because I had never really played it before, and I just touched on it here and there after I picked it up. But then I popped it in. I stuck with it for a couple of nights, and it's cool. Like, I dare I say, some of those games are deep. Like they actually are. They've got combo systems to them, and a good strategy. So yeah, if you've not seen the PGM or the PGM games, like definitely go out, start looking on YouTube, and start looking up some videos on those. I think people would be interested in playing those if you're at all interested in 2D gaming, which I would think is almost anybody in the chat or that watches the channel. Oh, Martial Masters. Yeah, that's another really good. You're right. That's another really good game on PGM. I only wish that there were more, really. There's like a couple like games like that have like multiple iterations too, which whatever. But they're all good. Yeah, Spectral versus Generation is the one I was talking about earlier. SVG, like that's probably the one cart that I would want to get, but it's just far too expensive at this point. Like every time I see it pop up, it's astronomical in price. PGM does run on emulators as well. I'm pretty sure it runs on. Again, it's not my forte, but I know I've emulated it before to grab gameplay footage for videos and stuff. I don't know if it's Final Burn Neo or straight MAME, but it definitely runs on. It definitely runs on emulators. Yeah, Smoke. I have been talking to him a little bit about his website and some of the stuff he's been doing with PGM, and even after. I mean, I've got a couple of things I got in the pipeline here for YouTube and videos that are mid-flight. I got the Uplink thing next weekend, but we were even talking about maybe like getting him on to talk PGM a little bit on the channel, which I think would be cool, and educate myself as well as some of the crowd out there. Cliff Racer, I have not heard of that podcast. I'm not, I'm really terrible at. I feel bad about that because I'm throwing out like obviously like Smoke Monster. Like I'll check out his videos from time to time. MC Mur was in here. There's a handful of people, but I'm so bad at staying current with other people's stuff and where they're at and what they're doing. It's just so difficult to do the type of hobby work like on the arcade machines and fixing things and then actually playing games and then putting together videos. It's so hard to stay up with everybody else's stuff, and I feel bad about that sometimes. Oh, True Pace. Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm glad that you check out the videos every now and then. Yeah, I would see, and the same thing, Smoke, like I would never just take SVG from him or anyone. Like it's just too much. You're right. Like it's like that awkward level of I can never repay this. There's nothing I have that can repay this other than just buying it outright, which I just can't do. See ya, Cliff Racer. Yeah, that's crazy, man. You had an AES in the 90s. Those people are hard to find. People that actually owned it back in the day. Yeah, I didn't know anybody that owned an AES back then. In fact, I only knew like one person that had a TurboGrafx 16. I'm impressed. It's funny you're saying you would respond to the joke. I'm always impressed when people actually know that that's my real name. As it was weird being like right before like the shutdown, like here in the States, like when people like would see me like at a con, like nobody called me Joe, and I'd have other like YouTubers come up and talk to me, and that was always like the thing. Like everybody kind of like, I'm really sorry, I don't know your real name. like everybody just knows everybody by like their screen name or whatever in on YouTube. So, well, I said I was going to do this for 30 minutes. And what are we at? Like almost an hour and a half. It's after 11. So I think I actually am going to go back and work a little bit on the video that I have in flight. But since I had, like I said, I was getting everything ready here for Uplink next Saturday. Definitely, if you guys are around, you guys should definitely check that out. Those guys put on a pretty good show virtually. It's a virtual con. They've got a lot of good guests. Tom Kalinske, if you guys know Sega, or if you've read the book Console Wars or seen the recent documentary, Tom Kalinske of Sega, when they went head to head with Nintendo, he'll be there doing a talk and presentation. That's probably the guest I'm looking most forward to seeing. I'll be on a couple panels. There is an arcade documentary that I tweeted about that I'm going to sit in on, and we'll talk a little bit with the director and producer about the Chinatown arcade. And then there is another panel that I'm sitting in on with Video Game Esoterica, and he's talking about the M2 hardware. So I'm going to sit in on that and probably be educated myself. I don't know much about the M2 hardware. All I know is that I really wanted the M2 to come out because I was a 3DO owner back in the day and it never came. So probably talk a little bit about that. But there's a number of cosplayers and other YouTube channels. I think that they've got people lined up. So next Saturday, definitely look up Uplink, and it's like a full day of panels, and they've got multiple panels running throughout the day. So if you don't like something at 1 hour, you can, you probably have 2 or 3 choices of things you can listen in on. I was part of it back in August, which is really cool. I was kind of teasing Rayan Ali, who wrote NBA Jam the book. I sat in on his panel as part of that with him, and I was like, I'm just here. Like I would be in the audience, just kind of listening to you talk. But these guys thought that I could sit here and kind of co-host this with you. So this is like a free ticket for me. This is great. So but they got cool people like that coming in that have done things I think a lot of you guys would be interested in hearing about, and some return guests. And a lot of the return guests from August are doing co-panels, so we can kind of like support and get new people some spotlight and learn some things that you might not, smaller channels that you might not, that are really good, that are just kind of getting squashed because of just the way YouTube is sometimes, So getting those guys a little bit more spotlight and hearing what they had to say. The promoter of the con is really big on just kind of the art behind video games and it as a medium, and being able to look back on things and reflect on, it's not only its history, but like I said, the art and the design that has gone into a lot of the games, the artists, talk about hand-drawn animation, just moments in time. We were talking about that with Virtua Fighter and Virtua Racing and the state of hardware in a moment, and being able to reflect on that arcade culture, the console wars we talked about. So all that kind of stuff coming together and thinking about it, not just from is this a good game or is it not a good game? And those kinds of talks. It's really looking at everything from a very broad perspective, the history of games. So if you're interested in that at all, definitely support those guys and what they're doing. I think it was cool in August when we weren't getting out much and we weren't able to have in-person cons, that we had this type of event. And it's cool because it is like an actual con, because you're looking at your itinerary and you've got multiple options of places where things you can go to. So I would definitely check it out. Like I said, I'll be there. I would be there whether or not I was participating on these panels, but I hope to see some of you guys there. So, all right, I am going to check out for the night. It's 11 o'clock. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Again, thanks so much for the support on the channel, watching the videos. Stay tuned for more MiSTerCade stuff. I'll be looking at more MiSTer cores and things like that in the future. Probably some Neo Geo core comparisons coming up. Some other really good YouTubers here that showed up in the chat tonight. Obviously, Smoke Monster, MC Mur, check him out. The Rex Show I saw was in here too. Like, he's got a good channel. Definitely make sure you give him a watch and head on over there. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.